Pocket hole joinery is a great and simple way to whack a few bits of wood together in a consistent manner. However, the jigs that are available to do this kind of work are pretty tricky to change between sizes of timber. The Armor Tool AutoJig makes that dead simple, and it makes pocket holing a lot more accessible and a lot quicker, no matter what type of workshop you're in. A while ago, I was building some simple frames, and the simplest way to join it looked like it was going to be pocket holing. I hadn't done a bunch of pocket holing, wandered into the store, and I was like, all right, I'll get myself set up with one of these things. Had a quick look at it, and it just seemed so fiddly, all the adjustments I had to make to change between timber sizes, that I ended up walking out without buying it and joining the timber in some other way. I was just turned off by how something that seemed like it should be simple just seemed overly complicated. Then, when Timber threw one of these at me, I was as skeptical as I was the first time, but it does exactly what I want. It sets the adjustments automatically, really simply. I'm not messing around with lots of different adjustments every time I change timber thickness. The way pocket holing works is you're drilling a hole in an angle through your piece of timber, and then that allows the screw to sit neatly underneath the surface and go into the piece of timber underneath. Now, depending on the thickness of timber, you need to drill that hole to different depths, and that's where the jigs have always been tricky to set up. But with the AutoJig, it's really just one movement to set it up, regardless of the thickness of the timber, and it automatically adjusts to that thickness. I'll show you how it works. You've got your drill bit that has this lock ring that acts as your depth stop. You place that drill bit into the jig with the depth stop loose, and it just sits in this side thing here, and then you can use this toggle to adjust the gap between the clamping plate and the jig itself. Now, if you're using some 19mm stock, you just close it up and it adjusts the height position where the holes are going to enter the timber, and it also adjusts the clamp, and at the same time it's adjusted your lock ring so that the depth stop on your drill bit is set automatically as well. I'll take this piece of timber out so you can see how that lock ring moves at the same time as the jig. You place the timber into the jig, you pull this toggle so it clamps up on the timber, you use your Allen key to tighten up the lock ring on the drill bit, and you can take that out and it's ready to drill, and then you can lock down the lever here just to lock the timber in place. You can do that before or after you tighten up the lock ring on the drill bit. Now that the timber is clamped in and the depth is set on your drill bit, you're ready to drill through the guide holes here, and the depth stop will stop you going too deep. Unclamp it, and you've got those holes in the perfect position. They haven't come through the bottom, or they're just barely coming through, which is exactly what you want. You've got a nice deep hole, which means your screw head will sit perfectly in that hole. The other really great thing about this jig, as well as it auto-adjusting the height of those holes, is at the same time it has a little guide which tells you what size screw to use. And what they're actually referencing is a whole range of coloured screws that AutoJig make that allow you to line up directly with this jig, so you don't need to go and find a screw that's the right size in a specific length. You know, when I'm using 19mm stock, I can look at this jig and I just know, oh, I've got to go grab a green screw. Or if it's slightly thicker stock, it's going to be, you know, the red or the yellow screw. They have coarse thread or fine thread for softwoods and hardwoods, but it just makes it so easy at a glance to see, you know, the screw that you should be using. And that means that you don't run the risk of grabbing a screw that's too thick and drilling straight through your material, which, you know, defeats the purpose of a pocket hole screw. As I mentioned, if you're changing from thinner timber to thicker timber, in any variation of thickness, it doesn't need to be 19mm or 35mm, it can be anywhere in between. You know, you don't need to do a whole bunch of micro adjustments on this thing. You just put the timber in, pull the toggle, and it locks in place. So changing from 19 to 35, it's just as simple as putting it in there and closing that toggle. And there's nothing else I need to adjust. Make sure your drill bit is in place so that the depth stop is moving at the same time. But that's all done within the one movement of moving that toggle. For the kind of work that I am going to be using a pocket hole jig for, it's mainly rapid prototyping, putting frames together and other jigs in the shop, and I need to be able to change between timber thicknesses really quickly, or it's just no use. I'm not going to sit there and like micro adjust the different clamping things I need to do in the height. So with a jig like this, I can just screw it down onto the bench. It's always there, always ready to use, to put together some jig really quickly. For me, if it's not that quick and easy, it's just not going to get used, and this proves itself as, you know, being that simple. It's also got dust extraction, so, you know, that's an advantage. If you're doing a bunch of these, you're pumping out a lot of sawdust. You can easily screw this down to the bench. There's plenty of replacement parts if you ever need to replace the drill bit or whatnot. Other than that, you know, really handy tool to have around and allows you to do some really rapid joinery that's really strong. For more information, you can click on the links below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and you know, we'll have plenty more things to teach you in the coming weeks and months.